Hello and welcome to English Time Daily History. Today, we're journeying back in time to one of the most turbulent and fascinating periods in Chinese history, the Three Kingdoms era. It was an age of heroes, villains, brilliant strategists, and epic battles that have captured the imagination of people for nearly 2 millennia. From blockbuster movies and video games to classic literature, the legends of the Three Kingdoms have become a global phenomenon. But what was this period really like? How did it shape the course of Chinese history? Join us as we go beneath the chaos to understand the legends, the politics, and the people of the Three Kingdoms. The story begins in the late 2nd century AD. The once mighty Han dynasty, which had ruled China for over 400 years, was crumbling from within. The emperors had become weak, corrupted by court eunuchs and powerful clans fighting for influence. Across the land, peasant rebellions erupted, the most famous being the Yellow Turban Rebellion. The government, unable to quell the uprising on its own, granted regional governors and warlords unprecedented military power to restore order. This was a fatal mistake. Instead of saving the dynasty, these ambitious warlords carved out their own territories, plunging the empire into a massive, decades-long civil war. From this crucible of chaos, three major power blocks eventually emerged, each led by a formidable figure. In the north, controlling the heartland of the old Han Empire, was the brilliant and ruthless Cao Cao. He established the foundation of what would become the Kingdom of Wei. In the southwest, in the rugged lands of Shu, was Liu Bei, a distant relative of the Han imperial family who portrayed himself as the righteous successor, aiming to restore the dynasty. And in the southeast, along the fertile Yangtze River Delta, was Sun Quan, who inherited a stable and prosperous domain from his father and brother, forming the Kingdom of Wu. The stage was set for a monumental three-way struggle for control of all of China. Understanding the power dynamics of this era is key. It wasn't just about who had the biggest army. It was a complex game of chess involving alliances, betrayals, and political maneuvering. For instance, the alliance between Liu Bei and Sun Quan was absolutely crucial. Separately, neither could stand against Cao Cao's overwhelming military might. Together, they could challenge him. This alliance led to one of history's most iconic battles, the Battle of Red Cliffs in 208 AD. Cao Cao led a massive naval fleet down the Yangtze River, confident he would finally crush his southern rivals. However, he underestimated the strategic genius of Liu Zhouzhliang and Sun Quan's commander, Zhou Yu. Using fireships, the Allied forces decimated Cao Cao's fleet, a stunning victory that Shayna Benisers, and cemented the three-weight of Krinisware with the Senbaiware to three set with where and we were to so and when I said to I'm at the Kim and I'm on the Kai This battle is a perfect example of how strategic ingenuity could overcome sheer numbers. The battles of the Three Kingdoms were legendary not just for their scale, but for the clever tactics employed. We see the use of psychological warfare, intricate deceptions, and innovative military strategies. Zhuge Liang, often depicted as a near-mythical strategist, is famous for his empty fort strategy. The story goes that, facing an approaching enemy army with only a handful of soldiers, he ordered the city gates to be thrown open while he calmly sat atop the wall, playing his zither. The enemy general, fearing an ambush, was too suspicious to attack and retreated. While the historical accuracy of this specific tale is debated, it perfectly illustrates the emphasis on intellect and cunning that defined the warfare of the period. These weren't just brawls, they were battles of wits where the smartest, not always the strongest, prevailed. But the Three Kingdoms era was more than just a series of battles and political schemes. This period of fragmentation and uncertainty sparked profound cultural shifts. With the collapse of the centralized Han bureaucracy, the rigid Confucian orthodoxy that had dominated society began to weaken. This created space for other schools of thought to flourish, particularly Taoism. Scholars and artists, disillusioned with the constant conflict and political ambition, retreated from public life. They sought solace in nature, poetry, wine, and philosophical contemplation. This movement, known as Zhuangzi or dark learning, explored metaphysical questions about existence and reality. It fostered a new appreciation for individualism and spontaneity, which had a lasting influence on Chinese art and literature. For example, poetry became more personal and expressive, moving away from formal courtly styles to reflect the raw emotions of the time: grief, loss, and a yearning for peace. Of course, you can't talk about the Three Kingdoms without talking about the larger-than-life figures who have become household names. At the center of it all is Cao Cao. In traditional narratives, especially the classic novel romance of the Three Kingdoms, he is often portrayed as the ultimate villainer, cunning, power-hungry tyrant. However, historical records paint a more complex picture. Yes, he was ambitious and could be merciless. But he was also a brilliant administrator, a gifted poet, and an exceptional military leader who valued talent above all else. He recruited people based on merit, not social status, which was a radical idea at the time. He restored a degree of order and stability to the war-torn north, laying the groundwork for its future prosperity. On the other side, we have Liu Bei, the embodiment of righteousness and benevolence. His journey is a classic underdog story. He started with virtually nothing: no land, no army, just a noble lineage and a powerful vision to restore the Han dynasty. His success was built on his ability to attract and retain incredibly loyal and talented followers. Most famously, his sworn brothers, the mighty warrior Guan Yu and the fierce Zhang Fei, as well as the aforementioned genius strategist Zhuge Liang. Liu Bei's appeal was his Ren, a Confucian concept of benevolence and humanity. He was seen as a ruler who cared for the common people, and this moral authority was his greatest asset in a world dominated by brute force. Then there is Sun Quan, the pragmatic leader of Wu. He was younger than his rivals and often overlooked, but he was an incredibly effective ruler. He inherited a stable base of power and was skilled at managing the powerful local families in his territory. While Cao Cao was aggressive and Liu Bei was idealistic, Sun Quan was a survivor. He was flexible, willing to make alliances with either side to protect and expand his own kingdom. His long and stable reign allowed the culture and economy of southern China to flourish, a legacy that would have significant long-term consequences for the entire country. The epic clashes between these figures are the stuff of legend. Consider the Battle of Guandu in 200 AD, where Cao Cao, with a much smaller army, decisively defeated his northern rival Yuan Shao. He achieved this through a daring surprise raid on Yuan Shao's supply depot by cutting off his enemy's food supply. Cao Cao caused Yuan Shao's massive army to collapse. This victory secured his dominance over northern China and is a masterclass in strategic risk-taking. Then there's Liu Bei's arduous takeover of the Shu region, guided every step of the way by Zhuge Liang's brilliant long-term plan, the Longzhong Plan, which outlined the strategy for establishing a tripartite balance of power. These events weren't just random acts of violence, they were the culmination of years of planning, political maneuvering, and strategic foresight. The cultural impact of this era cannot be overstated. In the centuries that followed, the stories of these heroes and their struggles were told and retold, eventually being immortalized in the 14th century novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms. This book, one of China's four great classical novels, blends historical fact with folklore and dramatic embellishment. It's this romanticized version of events that has cemented the characters' archetypes: the villainous Cao Cao, the virtuous Liu Bei, the godlike strategist Zhuge Liang, and the peerless warrior Guan Yu, who would later be deified as a god of war and loyalty. This novel is not just a book, it's a cornerstone of Chinese culture, teaching generations about strategy, loyalty, ambition, and the human condition. Its influence is so profound that many people today know the Three Kingdoms primarily through its dramatic lens. Ultimately, the Three Kingdoms period came to an end. The constant warfare drained the resources of all three states. After the deaths of the founding generation, their successors lacked their vision and charisma. The Sima family, who had served the Wei kingdom for generations, gradually usurped power, much like Cao Cao had done to the Han Emperor before them. In 263 AD, Wei conquered Shu. 2 years later, Sima Yan forced the last Wei emperor to abdicate, establishing the Jin dynasty. Finally, in 280 AD, Jin conquered the last remaining kingdom, Wu, reunifying China after nearly a century of division. The Age of Heroes was over. But the legacy of the Three Kingdoms endures. It was a time of immense suffering and destruction, but also one of extraordinary heroism, brilliant strategy, and profound cultural change. It serves as a timeless reminder of the complexities of power, the fragility of unity, and the enduring human spirit in the face of chaos. The stories from this era continue to teach us valuable lessons about leadership, loyalty, and the delicate balance between ambition and morality. It's a period that shows how history is not just made by grand armies, but by the will and intellect of unforgettable individuals. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the Three Kingdoms era. We've only scratched the surface of this incredibly rich and complex period of history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comments which figure or battle from this era fascinates you the most. And don't forget to subscribe to English Time Daily History and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure into the past. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.